Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. Shan had never seen a neighborhood so quiet. The hills rose around her in smooth curves and pale stone, every house identical in its perfection. White siding, trimmed hedges, windows that reflected the sky like unblinking eyes. The air smelled clean, almost sterile, like rain that never quite touched the ground. She parked at the end of the long driveway and sat there longer than necessary, hands resting on the steering wheel, reminding herself this was real. A live-in job. A room. A bed. The house was massive up close, beautiful in the way expensive things always were. Impressive but impersonal. When the front door opened, the woman greeted her with a thin smile and eyes that seemed to look through her instead of at her. Her voice was soft, distant, like she was speaking from another room. "You can leave your things inside." The husband appeared behind her, warm and apologetic, laughing gently as if to smooth over something invisible. He shook Shan's hand, thanked her for coming, told her how grateful they were. Everything he said made sense. Everything he said felt practiced. The house was immaculate. No dust, no clutter. Even the air felt arranged. Shan followed them through wide rooms and high ceilings, past framed art that didn't seem to depict anything recognizable. She kept waiting for the sense of awe to arrive. Instead, there was only a low, quiet pressure in her chest she couldn't explain. The child peeked at her from the hallway, watching without curiosity or fear. When Shan smiled, he didn't smile back. He began to hum instead, slow and tuneless, before disappearing into the shadows. "This is your room," the husband said, opening a door at the end of the hall. It was perfect. Clean sheets, soft lighting, a window overlooking the manicured yard. Safe. That night, Shan locked the door. She checked it twice. She lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar quiet, telling herself she was lucky, that this was her chance. Sometime later, she woke with the unmistakable certainty that something had changed. The door stood open, and she knew, without understanding how, that it hadn't been that way when she fell asleep. Morning arrived without sound. No birds, no traffic, no distant hum of life beyond the house. Shan lay still in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for proof that the world outside her room still existed. When she finally sat up, her bedroom door was closed again. Locked. She stared at it longer than she needed to. Downstairs, the house was already awake. The wife stood at the kitchen counter, back straight, hands resting flat on the marble as if she were waiting for instructions. She didn't turn when Shan entered. "Good morning," Shan said. A pause. Then softly, "You don't need to rush here." The words felt less like reassurance and more like a statement of fact. The husband appeared moments later, cheerful, apologetic. He poured coffee, asked if she'd slept well, spoke with the easy warmth of someone who needed things to feel normal. Shan nodded, accepting the mug, grounding herself in the heat of it. The child sat at the table, swinging his legs. He wasn't eating. He watched her instead, eyes bright and unreadable. When Shan smiled, he tilted his head and began to sing under his breath. The melody was wrong. Not childish. Not playful. It sounded old, measured, deliberate. Each note held just a moment too long. Shan felt a chill trace down her spine. "That's a beautiful song," she said carefully. The child looked at her, then smiled. "You already know it," he said. She didn't. The baby began to cry upstairs. The sound was sharp, piercing. Shan flinched instinctively, already moving toward the stairs before the wife spoke. "I'll get him." The crying stopped the moment the wife disappeared upstairs. Not gradually. Instantly. Later, while cleaning, Shan caught her reflection in a hallway mirror. And for a split second, it didn't move when she did. She blinked, heart racing, and the image corrected itself. She told herself she was tired, that new places felt strange, that she should be grateful. That evening, as the house dimmed, the dog appeared beside her chair without sound. It sat, staring at the dark hallway leading to the basement door. It didn't growl. It didn't blink. It just watched, like it was waiting for something to come back out. The first sound woke her at exactly 3:12 a.m. It wasn't loud. That was what made it worse. Shan lay on her side, eyes open, listening as something shifted inside the walls, not scurrying, not scratching. It moved with weight and intention, like a body adjusting itself in a space too small to be comfortable. The sound traveled slowly, from above her head down the length of the wall, then stopped. She held her breath. Silence returned, thick and absolute. In the dark, Shan told herself it was pipes. Old houses made noise, even expensive ones. Especially at night, when the mind reached for things it didn't understand. She turned onto her back, staring at the ceiling, counting her breaths until sleep finally dragged her under. By morning, the house felt wrong. Not dirty, not damaged. Just misplaced, like a set piece that had been assembled slightly out of alignment. The wife stood in the hallway when Shan stepped out of her room, close enough that Shan nearly collided with her. "You move quietly," the woman said. Shan laughed softly. "I try." The woman watched her for a long moment, eyes unfocused. "That helps." Later, while folding laundry, Shan noticed the rhythm again, a soft, wet sound repeating at steady intervals. It came from the direction of the garage. She stood frozen, towel clenched in her hands, listening as it continued. Drag, pause, drag. Like something being pulled across concrete. When she opened the garage door, the sound stopped. The space was spotless, empty. The air smelled faintly metallic, like rain on hot pavement. Shan backed away slowly, closing the door with care. That night, she saw the husband standing at the end of the hallway. He didn't move when she approached, didn't speak, just stared at the wall beside her bedroom door, his shadow stretching too long across the carpet. "Everything okay?" she asked. He blinked, smiling suddenly, warmth snapping back into place. "Of course, just checking the house." She nodded, heart pounding, and slipped into her room. Hours later, she woke to pressure beneath her palm. The floor vibrated faintly, as if something heavy was shifting below. She slid out of bed, crouching, and pressed her ear to the ground. The sound came from beneath her, from the basement. And when she tapped the floor with her knuckles, the echo that answered back was hollow. The basement door wasn't locked. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Shan pause, her hand hovering inches from the knob. The air around the door felt cooler, heavier, as if the house itself exhaled there. She listened first. Nothing, no voices, no movement, just that deep, unnatural quiet she was beginning to recognize as a warning. The light flicked on with a soft hum. Concrete steps descended into shadow, the walls narrowing as she went. The smell hit her halfway down, damp, old, and faintly sweet, like something left too long in a sealed container. At the bottom, the basement opened into a wide, unfinished space. Shelving lined one wall, cardboard boxes stacked neatly against another. Too neatly. Shan stepped closer. She didn't touch anything at first. She didn't have to. Shoes sat side by side on the floor beneath the shelves. Women's shoes, different sizes, some worn thin at the heel, some still clean, like they'd barely been used. Her chest tightened. A sweater hung from a nail nearby. It smelled faintly of detergent. And underneath it, something human. Sweat, skin, memory. She turned, heart racing, and noticed the wall. One section looked wrong. The concrete there was smoother, newer. When she knocked, the sound that answered back was dull and shallow. Not solid. Her hands shook as she searched for an edge, found it. Pressed. The panel shifted. Behind it was darkness. And then a sound. A breath. Shallow. Fragile.
"Oh my God,"
Shan whispered. A woman sat chained to the wall, wrists raw, eyes wide with relief and terror all at once. Her hair hung in tangled strands around her face. Her mouth trembled when she saw Shan. "Please," the woman rasped.
"You have to help me. They can't know you found me."
Shan rushed forward, dropping to her knees, fingers already working at the chains. "I'll get you out, I swear. I'll call the police." "No," the woman said sharply. Too sharply. "You can't. They own them. You don't understand. This place." Footsteps sounded overhead. The woman's grip tightened painfully around Shan's wrist. "You have to go. Come back later, please. I've been waiting so long." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in from every direction. Shan stumbled back, heart hammering, replacing the panel just as the basement light flickered. When she looked again, the wall was smooth, solid, unbroken. She went upstairs shaking, her mind screaming that she'd imagined it. But that night, as she lay awake, she realized something cold and terrible. The woman had called her by name, and Shan had never told her what it was. Shan stopped trusting the house on the third day. It wasn't anything dramatic, no screams, no blood, just small things that refused to stay where she left them. A chair angled differently at the table, a door she was certain she'd closed standing slightly ajar. The sense that the space around her was being rearranged when she wasn't looking, quietly, patiently. The wife appeared in places she shouldn't have. Once Shan saw her in the upstairs hallway, standing at the far end, head tilted as if listening to something inside the walls. Shan blinked, and the woman was suddenly behind her in the kitchen, speaking softly about groceries. The child's singing grew louder. It came from the vents now, from inside the walls, from beneath the floorboards. The melody never changed, but the voice did. Sometimes higher, sometimes older, sometimes layered, like more than one mouth was humming along. The husband stopped finishing sentences. He'd speak, warm and reassuring as always, and then trail off mid-syllable, eyes unfocused, before simply walking away. Once, Shan followed him into the living room. He wasn't there. That afternoon, she returned to the basement. The wall was solid, no seam, no panel, no trace of disturbance. She pressed her ear against it anyway, heart racing, and listened. Nothing. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She staggered back, panic rising, when the wife's voice drifted down the stairs. "She doesn't like when you go looking." Shan spun around. The woman stood at the top of the steps, smiling gently. Her eyes reflected the basement light strangely. Too many points of brightness, overlapping, shifting. "Where is she?" Shan demanded. "The woman. Where did you put her?" The wife tilted her head. "You saw her too?" The floor seemed to tilt. The wife stepped closer, her smile widening, stretching just a little too far. "That means you're almost ready." Shan ran. She didn't stop until she slammed her bedroom door shut, locking it with shaking hands. She backed away, breath ragged, watching the handle. From the other side, something pressed against the door. Not knocking, not pushing, just resting there. Waiting. The door didn't open. It didn't need to. Shan stood frozen in the center of the room, staring at the handle as the pressure on the other side slowly slid away. The silence that followed felt deliberate, like the house was giving her time to understand something she wasn't ready to know. Her phone had no signal. No bars, no emergency calls. Nothing. The singing began again, closer now. Not from the walls, not from the vents. From inside the room. Shan turned slowly. The wife stood near the window, though Shan hadn't heard the door open. Her face looked the same at first. Calm, composed. But it didn't stay that way. The features softened, then shifted, as if someone were pressing from beneath the skin, trying out shapes. "You were never meant to see the basement," the wife said gently. The husband stepped out of the shadow beside her, then the child, then the baby. Cradled wrong, limbs bent at angles that made Shan's vision blur. And then they overlapped. Faces slid through one another, limbs merged and separated, voices stacked, harmonizing in that same terrible melody.
"We make what we need,"
they said together. The chained woman's face surfaced last, eyes wide, pleading, mouth opening in a perfect imitation of fear. "You almost saved me," she whispered. The truth slammed into Shan so hard she staggered. There had never been a family. There had never been a prisoner. Only one thing, splitting itself apart, wearing people like layers, softening her with kindness, routine, gratitude, feeding slowly, carefully.
"You were perfect,"
it crooned.
"You stayed, you cleaned, you listened."
The walls began to breathe. The floor rippled under her feet as the thing unfolded. Too tall, too many joints, skin pulling apart to reveal darkness beneath. It moved along the ceiling as easily as the floor, faces blooming and collapsing along its body. Shan ran. The house screamed with her. Doors slammed shut, hallways stretched. The thing chased her with borrowed voices. Her mother's, her own. Begging, apologizing, promising. She burst through the front door barefoot, lungs burning, skin slick with blood she didn't remember earning. Behind her, the house went still. Watching. Shan didn't remember crossing the street. One moment she was on the lawn, feet torn and bleeding, lungs scraping for air, and the next she was pounding on a neighbor's door, sobbing so hard she nearly collapsed when it opened. A woman stared back at her, mid-40s, wrapped in a soft sweater. Warm light spilled from behind her. The smell of coffee and something sweet drifted out into the night. "Oh my God," the woman said, eyes widening. "What happened to you?" Shan tried to speak, her throat locked. She pointed behind her toward the house on the hill. The woman ushered her inside without hesitation, sat her on the couch, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. The television murmured quietly in the background. Some sitcom laugh track, distant and unreal. "You're safe now," the woman said gently. "You're safe." The words sank into Shan like a drug. She watched the woman move through the kitchen, steady and solid, human. Everything here felt normal, lived in, a life with corners and imperfections. Shan pressed her hands into the couch cushions, grounding herself in the texture. Her phone buzzed. Signal. Relief hit her so hard she almost cried again. "I'll call for help," the woman said, already dialing. "Whatever you went through, no one deserves that." Shan nodded weakly. She glanced toward the front window. Across the street, the house in the hills looked exactly as it had when she arrived. Lights warm, windows glowing softly, peaceful. Waiting. The woman returned, smiling. They'll be here soon. She knelt in front of Shan, her eyes kind. Too kind. You were very brave, she said. Not everyone makes it out. Shan frowned. Out of... The woman's smile didn't fade. Her pupils narrowed, slit and gleaming, reflecting more light than the room should allow. You'll rest now, she said softly. We'll take care of you. Behind her, the hallway stretched longer than it should have. And somewhere in the distance, far below the floorboards, something began to hum. The same song. The one Shan already knew.